Well, surprise everyone, we have a special episode. Oh my goodness, I can't even talk. A special episode of the Evidence-Based Triathlete. Here we are on what day is it? It's Wednesday afternoon. But we've been able to connect with Brian Johns at Form Goggles, and Form Goggles are a really innovative product that both Ted and I have used, and Ted uses it more than I right now, but it's really such an innovative product, and we're trying to incorporate it in some of the research that we're doing. And so we had the opportunity and we got to say, we got to thank David Lerner for making this connection. We've had the opportunity to connect with them to talk with them about their product. But before I get going too far, Ted, how's it going?
Good, yeah. Wednesday after is it Wednesday? Wednesday
It is
afternoon.
Wednesday. I know. Yeah.
It's so funny. We normally do this podcast on Fridays, but it's the last 2 weeks we did a Monday and now we did a Friday. So no, this is good. Like you said, I've used Form Goggles a lot. I started using basically. I was I think one of the very first users. People are always coming up to me, "Oh, what's on your head?" I did it. I used them for 3 years straight, and actually it was really good for me using them during COVID when we were kind of like kind of on our own. I didn't have a swim coach at that time, and John's got his right there.
No.
Swim coach at the time, and it was really help. It was very motivating for me. I was also doing a lot of open water swimming at the time because pools were closed, and so getting some actual good data while I was swimming was super cool. So yeah, we're really excited to have you on the podcast with us, Brian. And so we'll just start out. Why don't you give us a little background on you and your work with Form Goggles, and then I guess an overview of what Form Goggles are and potentially how they can help swimmers.
Yeah, totally. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to come on and chat about it. My background, my official title here is the head of coaching science at Form. My background is in competitive swimming. So I swam for the national team in Canada from about 1998 to 2012. Um, 3 Olympics during that time. And then once I retired, went into coaching and coached the varsity team at UBC, University of British Columbia, for about 4 or 5 years, and then followed that with some age group coaching in Vancouver for another 4 or 5 years. And interestingly, when I was swimming, I got like 3 or 4 NCAA scholarship offers, one from UNLV, so thank you for that.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I ended up staying in Canada and training here and doing most of my competitive swimming in Canada. And then since then, I actually, talking about COVID, I kind of went through a transition period from there, going from coaching towards data science and getting my diploma in data science and kind of bringing those two knowledge bases together to come here at Form so that I kind of liaise with the machine learning side, the data side, and using my coaching expertise to help make features that will help swimmers become our users become better swimmers, improve their technique, improve their training, and improve the experience that they're having in the water while using our goggles. And so for the Form goggles themselves, we create, I guess you can call it a smart goggle that has a heads up display inside the goggles. So you can see in the goggle screen, displaying like your time, maybe your stroke count, your distance per stroke, your real-time stroke rate, all that can be displayed for you inside the goggle, and you can see it while you're swimming. The patented technology that's in the Form goggles is actually a projection of the screen. So there's some other products out there that have like the literal, like you're looking at pixels close to your goggles. The technology that's in the Form goggles is actually a projection, so that screen gets reflected through mirrors and out projected, so it doesn't feel like you're reading it right in front of your eye. It feels like you're reading it maybe 4 or 5 feet away. A little bit easier to look at it, but also easier to ignore when you don't want to look at it and you want to focus on your swimming, and then you bring your focus to it when you want it. And so that's the main product, and we're keep on working on updating features that continue within the goggles. So now we have workouts that you can download onto the goggles and follow the instructions of your workouts within the goggles. We expand that into training plans so that in the app you have workout to workout sequencing and automatically loads into your goggles, so you can follow that training plan one workout at a time as you're swimming through it. and we're always working on new things. And the most recent thing that I've been personally working on has been head coach, which is using the goggles to give you real-time feedback about improving technical aspects of your stroke, and using that to help you improve in the swimming in real time.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And I will tell you, like, one of the things that I really liked when I swam, or like when I swim with them, is the fact that I don't have to focus on it,
Right.
right? Like if I don't want to, it's still there. But because it's like kind of in the vision, like you said, like look to me, it looks like it's on the bottom of the pool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. It's like that, but it's also because of the way that it's projected, you can actually see through the pixelation. So
exactly.
it doesn't obscure your view. You can look straight through it to the bottom of the pool or to the other end or wherever you're looking. And then when you want to look at the data or when you finish a length or whatever it is, you bring your focus to it and it's right there.
And that's what I would do. I would get to the end of the pool. I would do a flip turn, and then there's a data screen that's super cool. Once you do a turn, it actually will give you a different data screen.
Mhm.
And for me, like, and I got to be honest with you, one of the things that I always struggled with was like, okay, my coach has me saying, okay, do a 400 or a 500. I couldn't tell. I couldn't remember. I'm at 375. I'm at 425. And so every time I do a flip, it would tell me what the length was.
Mhm.
And to me, that was like when I first started using, that was the coolest thing because I didn't have to count anymore. And the counting was stressful sometimes, right? And I wasn't able to maybe concentrate on my stroke or my hand position because I'm like thinking about how far I've gone or how far maybe I've gone. And sometimes I'd even sneak up and like look at the clock, like, well, okay, I'm at 320. That means I'm about 225. Like, and I'm not really concentrating on the swimming. And this was like taking that away from me. So I think that's a super cool feature. The other thing that I really wanted to talk to you about was early on, we were able to inform goggles. We were able to get pace and pace every flip turn. And to me, that was so good because I could tell when I was getting tired, right? And my pace would drop. So let's say every 25, I'm swimming a 25-yard pool. Every 25, let's say I was doing 25 on 20 seconds, right? And then all of a sudden it goes to 21, 22. Next thing you know, it's at 24. And it's like, okay, I probably should stop,
Mhm.
right? Because there's something technical going on, or I'm becoming so fatigued that my stroke isn't very good. And I think that was a really cool thing before all of the other stuff even that you guys have done. Like that's like the base stuff is super cool, and the things that you've been able to add have been super cool as well. So my question, I guess, is when you think about the swimmers and the swimmers that you've worked with, what are some of the defining things that they find are really helpful, especially when they first start using them? Because that for me, that was really helpful when I first started using them.
Yeah, I think like as base as it is, that length counter is like a pretty big one, whether you are just kind of going on your own or you're following a workout on the pool deck and just having something to count off for you if that's something that you struggle with. Like it just eases your mind on that side. Okay, I don't have to count my lengths. I can just focus on put my hand here, build up my swim, whatever it happens to be, and you can put all your focus just on your swimming. Um, Taking that the step further is like, especially for swimmers who are using their goggles and training on their own, now like we have workouts, or you can create your own workout in the app and have that loaded into your goggles. But doing the same thing, it's like, okay, I've got my workout plan, it's in my goggles, I'm just going to swim along with the workout plan. I don't have to worry about what's the next set, how much rest am I taking, yada yada yada. And then you can again, you're focused just on how to improve your swimming from start to finish. And like you see that as you recognize those patterns of like, oh, I'm fading away here, I better pick it up, or I better keep my length, or whatever it happens to be. And you'd be much more aware of what you're doing in the water in that moment, where you can take like all that tracking out of your mind and just focus on your swimming.
Yeah, no, I think that's so good because as much as we want to think that we can do it, humans are inherently bad at multitasking.
Yeah,
Right? Like
definitely.
it was, oh, I'm really good at multitasking. Oh, no, I mean you can have 4 or 5 projects going on at once, but you can only focus on really on one thing, right? And it's even something I do when I coach swimmers and I get in the pool with them. I'm like, okay, today in the next hour, we're gonna work on 3 things. That's it, and we're gonna break it down. It's gonna be 20 minutes of this, 20 minutes of this, 20 minutes of this, because you can't focus on more than one thing. And if your focus is on, once again, how many lengths I'm doing,
Mhm.
it can't be on your technique. And I think that that's a really big piece here, that you're able to give people. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other things. And I wanted you talk about the integration of the workouts. So you have workouts in the app, what you said, and I know that you'll utilize a lot of technology to help build those, plus experts in swimming. Um, Talk to me about that, and then can you also talk to me about the integration? I know now it's integrated with Training Peaks, and so if a coach like me was to write a workout for somebody, they can download it and they can actually see it in their goggles as well. So you can talk about the those two pieces.
Yeah, so talking about kind of like the data that we are able to get from the swims to begin with. So not only do we have like the heads up display, you're seeing everything in the goggles, but once you come back to the app, everything is tracked there and it's all recorded on a length to length basis, as well as if you're doing a workout or some sort of structured swim, you can break it down by like intervals, lengths within the intervals. So you use the example of like, okay, maybe you're swimming a 400, you start at 20s, you end at 24s. It's like, okay, well, maybe you do one workout, you did 3 400s, you see how you faded during those 400s. Okay. A week later, you do the same set, you do the 3 400s again. You can actually see in the app what you did last time, where you faded, what you faded to, how much did you improve this time. You can see the same times, track the same lengths, and be able to compare one workout to the other, and be able to actually see that comparison at the workout level. Within the workouts, we get anything that is available in the goggles is tracked in the app. So you can get your times. If you're more comfortable with your pace per 100, which I know a lot of triathlete and open water swimmers are, you can get that as well. Your stroke count, your distance per stroke in meters, your stroke rate, your split times for every single length within it, your heart rate, if you have your heart rate monitor connected to your goggles, which is available, as well as like the number of lengths and all those other more kind of fundamental pieces. And they're all tracked so that you can select the ones that are most important to you and make sure that you're tracking those from time to time. With Head Coach now, we actually expanded that. So we have some technique metrics that you can also follow. So the main ones that we have right now are, from a technique standpoint, is head pitch. So the way that your head moves up and down, or really what angle your head is at while you're swimming. Your peak head roll, so how much you're turning your head to take each breath. And your time to neutral, which is essentially the proportion of your breath that it takes to go from your breath back to a neutral position. So those three technique pieces are also available in the app with as a score, 1 to 100, 1 being not great, 100 being excellent, and then the actual literal measurements of each. So the pitch angle that you're at, the breathing angle that you're at as well. And then the other release that we came out with was form score. And so a piece that a lot of swimmers might use right now would be to measure their swimming efficiency. And they might do that with using something like Swolf, where they would just add their stroke count and add their seconds to get it. A very rudimentary, but easy way to calculate maybe a swimming efficiency. We have form score that actually is a bit more specific. So taking your distance per stroke as measured by the goggles, your actual velocity measured in meters per second, compared to your height, compared to what pool you're swimming in. And with that, give your form a score from 1 to 100. And having that as an efficiency metric to accurately see how well you're holding your technique as you swim. So it's quite a lot of data that's captured in there. And form score is also something that you can actually watch from length to length in your goggles as well.
I, I love this. I mean, it's so neat to not only have an innovative product of a heads-up display, which I'll go back to the fun factor that you mentioned, having a swimming background myself. At some point, you're just looking at the line, and it's nice to have something else to look at. And I remember the first time using the Form goggles, it was just an ooh-ah type of moment of using that. But these features are really fantastic, and I imagine that the majority of your market are people who have taken up swimming as adults, as opposed to people going through high school, college type of swimming. how much education do you provide on your website or in some portal that helps people understand why a form score might be helpful or why a certain head movement or what have you is helpful?
Yeah, so with the release of Head Coach last month, this was a big piece that was really vital for me to help our users understand how to get better at swimming, but having that translate into what they're seeing in the goggles while they're swimming.
Mm,
And so I think that like a lot of our user base are like triathletes. And so maybe they're super comfortable with technology in general.
mm,
They have their bike computer, their bike trainer. With runner, maybe they're using like a power meter of some form there, or their running watch, whatever it happens to be. But then you come to the pool and then you're looking at like the dial clock with nothing else to help you out. So there's a comfortability of the technology, but not a knowledge base of the sport. And so trying to bring those pieces together where, okay, the goggles are, I would say, relatively simple to use, but the people who are using it might be more expert at the other disciplines than they are at swimming. And so inside the app, along with all of the metrics and releases that came out with Head Coach, is coaching information that deep dives into each piece.
mm,
What is head pitch? How do you get it better? What do you do about it? And one of the things that you can do about it in our goggles is actually an in-game, like in swimming experience where you can actually see your head position in real time.
mm,
So it's a relatively simple um, outlay where it's like a Pong screen, one line at the top, one line at the bottom. The dot in the middle is your head, but keep your dot in the middle. It's pretty straightforward, but it is super effective at changing people's head pitch and their technique immediately because they're getting that real time feedback while they're swimming.
mm,
So if they're just focused on that one piece and they're changing their head pitch, they're improving something right away by watching this interface in the water. And then they can move on to something else, turn that piece off, follow their workout, wherever they're doing. Now you've increased the awareness of where their head position is at. So that it carries on going forward.
That's super cool. I honestly I haven't tried it yet, and I really I want to. You know, it's interesting. One of the things that when I first started swimming with form goggles, I would actually get a little bit sick, believe it or not,
mm,
and it was because my head was moving so much,
mm,
right? And so and I had other coaches tell me, hey, you know, you're really you move your head a lot when you swim. You move it left, you move it right, you move it up, you move it down. And so one of the things I was using early on was just trying to keep the screen on the black line,
mm,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And it actually really helped me a lot because I had that feedback, and it was just the data on the on just trying to keep it on the black line, and I could tell when I started moving my head too much because I'd actually get a little nauseous. It was a really good negative feedback loop, right? You feel sick, you stop doing something. But now it sounds to me like this is even, you know, obviously this is built in. So what kind of feedback are we getting from people that are actually using these? And yeah, I guess let's speak specifically to the head coach part.
Yeah, so for head coach, like a lot of people are really excited to use the form score. So just getting that like overarching metric of like how good is my swimming or how well am I holding my swimming is really powerful to see where it's like, okay, you might be going at time and time is okay, but it's a little bit maybe harder for some to grasp than others. But when you see this metric of like this is your efficiency, this is how it's going down, or this is how well you're holding it. Just having that one simple metric to follow. And the way that we display it in the app is that we have like your overall form score. So based off of your whole history, here's what how efficient you are. Then during your last workout, comparatively, how efficient were you during that workout? And then you could break it down, break it down, break it down, and all the way to the length level of like this length, this was your score. Next length, this was your score. And being able to have that tie from like the macro level, how good am I swimming? Am I as a swimmer in general, all the way to how am I swimming into this moment? That's a big connection that people have made in using the form score to be able to see this is how I'm doing right now. And then they go into the app and it's like, ooh, this is how I've improved overall.
mm,
And that's been pretty powerful. And then in addition to that, have been these in goggle experiences. So I explained the head pitch one, and like the you getting nauseous swimming is interesting, where on the peak head roll one is a similar experience, but the dot moves from side to side. So instead of, for you, might be like, instead of trying to keep the screen towards the black line, you can see your dot representing your head position moving side to side. And like, it's not like the intention of the experience for to see how still your head is in general, but it's there, and you can see it, and you're getting that feedback right there, that when your face is in the water, if your head's moving back and forth, you're watching this dot move back and forth too. And it's like, oh, that's disconcerting. Let's stabilize that. And then when I breathe, let's make sure it's below the line too. And that way you're getting like quite a bit of like coaching specific feedback to help you improve your swimming overall.
Yeah. This is so spectacular. It's so interesting. I'm taking this course right now. It's a gait course, so it's learning how to assess people running, and one of the things that they were really trying to figure out in gait is how to give people feedback.
Mm.
Right? If we want to make changes, so like hip abduction angle or something like weird like that. Well, there's no feedback mechanism, right? And other than running on a treadmill and maybe having a video camera and a screen and all that, there's just, it's not there. And you're actually giving instantaneous feedback. And there's something really, really powerful about that we don't have in running, and we don't have it in cycling. I mean, we have instantaneous, I guess, on power maybe, but it's not on technique. And I think that this is really special, because in the world of triathlon, I think we all agree that swimming is the most technical, right? We're not natural swimmers. We're we say we're born to run, and there's obviously there's the book, and cycling is relatively easy as far as a technical skill. But swimming, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people like, my gosh, if I could just get my technique better,
Mm-hmm.
And you're providing that, and so that's pretty awesome.
And that was a main motivation for me to come to Form in general, because I could see this potential where it's like, I think about myself as a coach on the pool deck, and it's like, one thing, you can have the technical expertise, but there's also a like a logistics issue with swimming, where it's like, okay, you told the swimmer to do like 400 meters, but they're screwing up their technique on the second length. What are you going to do? You could stop the swimmer, interrupt what they're doing, tell them what to do, and then go on, and hopefully they've improved. Or you wait until the end. They've been screwing up their swimming for 400 meters, and then they get to the end. Now I'm going to correct them, but now you're onto a different stroke. And so, like, rather than like in running or cycling, well, maybe not so much on endurance sports like that when you're traveling long distances, but I often think of like a team sport like basketball or hockey, and the coach can give you like real-time feedback. They're barking orders at you or whatever, but your head is in a space where it's not in water, where you can actually listen to the instructions while you're doing the sport. And in swimming, that's just not possible. So the potential of the Form goggles to be able to give you that feedback in real time when it's going to be the most powerful and the most effective to help you improve is so amazing. And it's like, it's a big piece of why I wanted to come in to direct this education in a way so that when a swimmer is seeing that feedback, they can make an immediate change. You don't have to wait until the end of the length. You don't have to wait until the end of the workout to get that feedback. You're getting it in real time. And that's so difficult to do in so many sports, especially in swimming.
I'd love this technology that's entering the swimming world, because the swimming world has always lagged behind in terms of technology, primarily because you get the water. Not only putting electronics in the water, but then also getting signals to be transmitted from the accelerometers and the goggles to somewhere, or your watch or what have you. That's always a little bit of problematic. And so this real-time feedback is so powerful. I'm curious, with triathletes, there's obviously the open water portion. So maybe speak to how these features behave in the open water versus in the pool.
Yeah, so right now we're continuously expanding what's available in the open water. Most of the stuff that we have is optimized for the pool, but when in open water, just using the goggles by itself, nothing else, you can still track how the time, how long you've been in there. And one of the metrics that I feel like is kind of the most important for performance in swimming is the real-time stroke rate.
Mhm.
And so for a lot of the swimmers I coach, they might be like, okay, you're going to swim this, but you're going to do it at your like half Ironman pace or your half Ironman stroke rate, if you happen to know what that is, or you're working towards a specific stroke rate to hold in your race. Then when you go into open water, you can actually track that stroke rate in real time. So it might be, okay, my stroke rate's going to be 50, whatever it happens to be. You're swimming like from one end of the lake to the other end of the lake, and you can actually see that in real time, being refreshed every second and a half, and making sure that you're on that rhythm so that you're practicing it. And that's for me one of the most powerful metrics that we can track in the goggles, because similar to the technique pieces, this is a metric that we can see in real time and be able to display it to the swimmer, and so they can get immediate feedback and make adjustments to be able to follow it. Then if you're using, you can also pair the goggles with a watch, and then you can get more enhanced metrics along with that, how far you've been traveling, and distance per stroke and stuff like that as well.
I love it. So just a quick follow up on that, because my research brain is, firing on all cylinders here and that. I'd love to look at a study of, the goggles in the pool and on the, in open water. I'm sure you've done things like that. But I'm curious, in the pool though, well, in a triathlon, you wear a wetsuit.
Mhm.
Should triathletes put the wetsuit on in the pool to get some of the metrics there, and then compare or contrast with and without the wetsuit?
Yeah, like I'm always fascinated by like um kind of the process that a coach might want to go with their athlete. Ultimately, I think that it's like it's really important to understand what you're preparing for, and then create a practice scenario that gets you prepared for that.
Hmm.
And so whether that is like, for me, I like, in my experience, I would say yes, do it. But if you're going to do most of your training without the wetsuit on, you're likely going to be comparing like your training metrics to other training metrics to watch improvement. If
Hmm.
you're like tracking long-term stuff, unless you're going to swim in the pool and in open water every single time with a wetsuit, then you're likely going to track most of your metrics in a regular swimsuit, however it is. But that being said, doing something that is maybe more testing oriented, and it's like, okay, I know I want to do like, I don't know, a 20-minute mile for the start of my Olympic distance triathlon. I'm going to do a 20-minute swim in the pool. I'll slap on my wetsuit. Let's see what my metrics are there compared to the metrics I want to do in the race coming up. And
Hmm.
that's a very effective way to actually make it a little bit more of an apples to apples comparison of what you're doing in preparation compared to what you're going to do in the race. Um, One way to do it. And then like also trying to, probably most of your swimming would be in a regular swimsuit, because you're comparing what you're doing in training comparing to later in the same training cycle.
Got it. Thank you. That's wonderful.
Okay, next question I have for you is on the metrics that you, I guess that the swimmers that you've worked with find most beneficial. So once again, there's a lot of options that we can do. So can you kind of break down what you all are seeing that people? I assume you're using data analytics and you're getting information back.
Mhm.
So what do most swimmers use?
What swimmers using right now? So like, I mean, it's obvious, but like time and pace, whatever they're comfortable with, especially like triathletes using the pace metric, where it's like, take all the mental math out of it. Oh, I went this time. What's that pace? What's my pace per 100? Yada, yada, yada. It's just spitting out your pace per 100 right there. And I think that's a very big piece that has helped a lot of swimmers of like, okay, am I in the right target speed? And they might measure that speed by seconds, but they might measure that speed by the pace per 100 meters or 100 yards. So having that there, immediately every length, that has been a big piece. Mention the lengths as well, or like any sort of system that allows the swimmers to count, or allow the goggles to count for the swimmers, whether that is just using the lengths or using following a workout, and then the workout itself is counting down how many meters you have left. Both of those like workouts are very prevalently used, and I think a big reason for that is to have some sort of structure, and then the swimmer doesn't have to worry about it anymore. So those would be two big pieces. And then beyond that, like kind of on the more advanced side, would be like that real-time stroke rate, because it is something that is there that is given in real time as you're swimming during the course of the length. You could see like the review of your previous length, how fast were you just going, but having that real time stroke rate is actually showing you how you're swimming right now in the moment. And that is a pretty powerful piece to follow along as you're going through the length or as you're swimming through open water. So those are kind of like the biggest pieces. And now as we release head coach as well, people are definitely being attracted to using form score in their goggles while they're swim, so that they can see how their efficiency is being held or breaking down through the course of their swimming. And it's a great metric where, like I said before, we have like kind of the macro metric of like how you are as a swimmer overall, and being able to relate like that piece where that might be difficult to get in time alone. It's like, okay, I'm a 20-minute miler. Maybe that's like, what does that mean from a length to length basis? It's hard to make that sort of connection using time or pace. But when we have a score that is easy to understand on a scale of 1 to 100, this is how you are big picture, and relating that big picture to the small picture of every length, that has been something that has been picked up by the swimmers a lot, and being able to use it and track their swimming going forward.
I love that, and I haven't tried the form score yet. Once again, I'm pretty excited to try it. So I'm trying to think of like, the average triathlete, like they love metrics, they love scores, and we're always trying to tweak, right? So let's say I say, well, I need to do this with my elbow. I want to like a higher elbow. I'm going to get a score right away, right? Like if I make the change, even if it doesn't feel comfortable, I might actually become a better swimmer, right? And that's the hard thing in swimming. We're always making these tweaks, and you can finish your 100 and look, oh, that was 130. Okay, that must have been better. Well, was it better, or did you just work really hard on that one? Right?
I think like the technical aspect of swimming is so odd, in the sense of like, when you are actually changing something in the water, it actually feels kind of bad. Like I know that we've all experienced that, or like the swimmer says like, oh, do this in the water. Oh, that feels weird. I don't want to do that. It's like, yeah, but that's the right way to do it. And like the fact that it's weird actually means that you're changing something, which is good, but there's that level of discomfort that's hard to overcome. And so yeah, like when you make a technical change, you have to rely on that internal feedback. And the only thing that is being told to you internally is that I'm doing something weird. Now, with something like form score, you're getting something that's external and giving you a score on what you're doing. So one of the best examples that I usually give is like, okay, let's do 850s or 825s even, super simple set. And you're going to make a technical change during it, not at the start, but during it. So do the first 225s, do your normal swimming, see what your form score is. Then we're going to make this one single change. Keep your elbow high, keep your like arm relaxed, whatever happens to be. And don't worry about how it feels, but just see if that changes your form score. Because likely that if that change is going to result in higher efficiency or increasing your distance per stroke, your form score is going to increase. So even at that like small level of like, you make that one change and you can see some sort of feedback outside looking in, rather than like relying on your internal feeling or the observations of a coach, you can actually get like objective feedback right away in the form of a score. And then to take that one piece further, it's like, okay, you've made that technical change. Great. How reliable are you at it? Now we're going to do a 400, see your form score, hold this pace. Okay, I'm holding the pace, but the form score is going down. Well, my technique's falling apart. Even though I'm going the same speed, I can't hold that technique the whole time. Maybe I'll do 200s next time. And being able to use something that is objective and easily understood to help you guide your training like that is so powerful.
You're making me want to update my goggles. I've got to turn them on and get them updated. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So this is awesome stuff. So when we really start to think about swimming and triathlon, I often go off on these I don't know, soapbox of triathletes are not swimmers, and the sport is different. And one of my big things, and this is something that I push with the people that I coach, is they need to take more rest. And because technique breaks down, and because the average triathlete maybe only swims 8,000 to 12,000 yards per week, they're not a swimmer swimming 50, 60,000 yards a week, right? So if this, I'm starting to think of like using this as a coach. I'm thinking like, hey, if your form score gets below this level, instead of 20 seconds rest every after a 200, you need to take 40 seconds, right? And then you do your next set. If it's still not better, you need to take a minute. You know what I mean? Like, so because once again, we should be really concentrating on good form, not just getting the yards in. And a lot of triathletes are coached by traditional swim coaches that are like, hey, we're taking 10 seconds break, we're taking 15 seconds break, and we're just going and we're just doing yards. And I think I actually think that's a mistake. And I think that that score could really help with that. And determining the rest to work ratio could be really, really impactful.
Yeah, totally. So there's a couple things that kind of come to mind thinking about that where I mean, ultimately, whatever sport you're doing, the way you train is going to be the way you perform.
Yep.
And if you're going to train to the point of exhaustion and your technique breaks down, you are going to swim with broken down technique when you race. And that's just like it's a universal truth across any sport you're going to do. The way you practice is going to show up in the race one way or the other. And so, like you said, if you're taking too little rest, you're breaking down, you're going too far in your intervals, whatever it happens to be, then that's going to show up. And like the percentage of meters that you do in that broken down state is going to be reflective in how you perform in the end game. So exactly where it's like, okay, let's use this form score to kind of dictate how we should be training a little bit more. And like there's all these different dials. So it's like one dial I just gave you was like, okay, we could increase the interval distance and how long does it take for you to break down? And then on the next set, we're going to go one step back from that and we'll just hold it there so that you're just doing, you can't hold it for 400 meters, but you can do it for 300. So let's do a few 300s in a row and hold it and like maximize how many good, high quality technique meters you're doing. And then, like you said, rest is another dial to turn. And like there might be a place where it's like you're testing for something and you're like, okay, how am I going to do? I'm going to do this like 10-100 classic swim test is like 10-100s on 2 minutes or something like that on 30 seconds rest, max effort, get your like some sort of MVO2 test. And there's a place for that. And then when you redo that test, you can use a measure like form score to see how well your efficiency improved from one time to the next. But on a day-to-day training basis, it's like, okay, well, we're doing 10-200s, you're okay on 20 seconds rest, but now you're breaking apart. Let's do 30 seconds rest, see how well you can hold it. Okay, you did two more, but now you're breaking apart again. Let's do 40 seconds rest. And like being able to like adjust those dials in real time during a workout to be able to maximize how well you're holding your technique through the course of the workout. The form score is really helpful to really identify that in a very clear way, whereas just time or just stroke count might be a little bit more difficult to see.
I love this. And earlier I asked about education for the athlete. I'm wondering, do you have an education portal for coaches?
Well,
And how
that's
do you?
one thing that I've definitely been working on, and that's like kind of down the road where we are mostly geared towards like the user who's using our goggles on their own.
Mhm.
And a lot of the swimmers who use our goggles might be training for a triathlon, but likely by themselves. And so there's enough there where the user's being informed as a swimmer, but there is coaching knowledge behind that. So if they're swimming by themselves, then they're kind of their own coach, and there's enough coaching foundation there to be able to do that for themselves. Along with these releases are like I've released a few blogs in association with this to help kind of inform a lot of the decision making and understanding how to use these features a little bit better. And my hope is to grow that a little bit more so that there's a foundation for the user and the swimmer and the coaches that they're working with to kind of understand how to not just like the knowledge base of whether it's like biometrics or energy systems and stuff like that, that's there, but how to use the goggles in coordination with that to actually enhance your training to a higher level.
Oh, I love it.
Just a technical question. Does form score get uploaded to Training Peaks?
I don't think form score does right now. That lives just on our app and it's well presented on the app and easy to follow through that.
Right.
Um, I think we had mentioned Training Peaks before
I,
where it's like
yeah, I'm just thinking as a coach, right? Like I look at
yeah.
some of the Training Peaks,
Mhm.
and I'd love to see their form score.
Hmm. Well, I will definitely put that down as a suggestion, that's for sure, and have it there and be like that on training. We can see this in the form app where it's like you can see the visualization of the workout and you can see how form score goes up and down as you go through it. I imagine that people would might be able to see that on Training Peaks as well. So I'll make sure about that one.
Because a coach, like an individual coach, I don't have access to like the form app for each individual athlete.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I think that would
totally.
be really interesting to see, especially if we could measure it over time, right? Like over a year, are we actually becoming a better swimmer,
Mhm.
or
Yeah,
am I just becoming fitter, right? Like which
totally. And
which
like,
is good.
yeah, in the form app, we do have the long-term view in there as well. So over the last few months and over the course of the year, we can see that update on form score specifically. And what we find is like there's a lot of different pathways to improve your form score where maybe on the lower end, people just need to get better at swimming. And so if they're focused on form score, they're making like it's low-hanging fruit. They're making technique gains pretty quickly. They can see that result happen pretty quickly. Those who are more well trained, even like triathletes who are well trained, highly fit individuals, but maybe weak at swimming, still kind of have to go through a process of like long term improvement where as you fatigue, well, maybe it's a little bit harder to hold that efficiency. But then as you recover and as you taper, you see the super compensation and you see the biggest improvements right in the end game of your race. And then you see like over the long term, you might see this laddering up of ups and downs, but the trend line is in the future is going up in the future. But on the week to week level, same things that might be affecting your performance. You're really tired. You just did a week of like 15K in the water and you're doing like 5 bikes and 3 runs and stuff like that. That's going to fatigue you. That'll show up. And then but you will know that I've been training this hard. I'm feeling the fatigue that's affected my swimming. And then as you come off the work, oh, I'm feeling great. My form score comes up, my performance comes up, and you can see how much better, how much you've improved as a swimmer over the long term.
No, I love this. I'm just once again thinking as a coach and coaching myself even. One of the things that once again John and I have talked about on the podcast is like the back-to-back training or 2 trainings in one day or training the day after a hard session. So, let's say I have somebody do like 20K hard running in the morning and then they're going to swim at night. Does that affect their form score? It, because they anecdotally like, oh my gosh, I struggled in the pool, and I'm like, yeah, I know you were tired, but if it really affects it to that amount, maybe swimming wasn't the best thing, or maybe we should have done 25s with 25-second rest, and that would have been all you needed for that night, rather than crush 4,000 yards, right? When you're tired, and triathletes are unique to that. Is most triathletes are training, six times a week minimum, but a lot of us are doing like 12 times a week, 12 sessions a week or more, and seeing what actually affects the swimming.
Yeah, like I've definitely one of the things that I'm hoping to get into as we go through and kind of research this further is like kind of the training timing of like you said, okay, you did a really hard run, your legs are smashed for your afternoon swim. Is that the best way to go? Or do the swim in the morning and then the run in the afternoon, or you're doing a bike? Is it the same effect bike after swim or whatever? I have thought about this more from a competitive swimming standpoint where it's like, okay, like competitive swimming, you're doing 50, 60, 70K. You're likely doing 8 to 9 workouts. So you're doing a morning and afternoon session. How good is your form in the morning compared to the night? And like, if you really want to take like the high performance angle of it, is like, okay, I'm going to be swimming Olympic trials. I know my morning race is going to be at 10 a.m. How am I going to prepare myself so that I'm maximizing my performance at that specific time of day? And form score can be something that can help you see how efficient you are. It's like, well, do I need to wake up at 6 a.m., have my 7 a.m. coffee, get to the pool at 8, and then be prepared? Or can I like wake up at 8 and shake it off and be prepared like that? Those are the types of things that you can like get to really high level fine tuning that form score can really help out with, of like understanding how these bigger effects on your body could reflect on your performance in an easier way than like I probably don't want to do a 400 freestyle every single time I want to test my 400 freestyle, but my form score might be a good way to measure, like, okay, I'm most efficient at this time or after this amount of time after I woke up. I'm going to make my preparation plan more around that and see how that does better as a way to measure it.
I
That's
love
awesome.
it. But yeah, because a lot of people travel to races and they go across multiple time zones, and looking at the influence of jet lag on swimming and trying to get control over that, or at least recognize it, is important. I know we're almost out of time. I do have a pragmatic question for you, because I know people might want to try the goggles, but they're often worried about goggle fit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach goggle fit for people who want to try the goggles out?
Yeah, totally. Like I'm convinced that like once the goggles end up on the faces of people and in a comfortable way, they fall in love with it very quickly and they can see the value of it very fast. But we want to make sure that the goggles are fitting well. So if you purchase the goggles, we have a 30-day money back guarantee, no questions asked. So you got a whole month to give them a try. The goggles themselves, they're hard nose pieces. So they're like single sizes, but we have 5 sizes available, especially for different nose shapes. So like I got a honk and schnoz. I need like a large that arches over my nose bridge. There's a different nose bridge for that specifically. For others, we find, especially for like women, smaller women who might need like the extra small nose piece, and that fits them well. And so we have a variety of nose pieces. And then there's also, we have guides in the app, we have guides in blog form to help guide swimmers on how to get the best fit possible with our goggles.
Right.
It might be a little bit different because there is the computer there on the side where it's like, okay, maybe you need to be like just a little bit tighter than normal to just make sure that the drag isn't going to push the computer around. But overall, like you got 30 days to do it, as many swims as you want during those 30 days to try it out, adjust the straps, adjust the nose bridge, adjust it on your face, flip the computer to the other side if you need to. You're more, you know, if you're visually impaired in one eye, you might want it in the other. All those things are, you can test out in the first month. Doesn't work out, you send it back, no questions asked, get your money back.
Mm. I love it. This has been amazing. I love the innovative technology, and that you're continuing to develop not only the technology but the software application as well. This has been fantastic. Thank you, Ted. What final
You know,
words do you have?
I guess my last question is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to, that you think people need to know?
I think that like in terms of what's out there right now, I think we've covered it pretty well. I think with the release of Head Coach at the end of October has been really big, and it has been like a huge shift in terms of being able to coach technique through the goggles in real time. So for swimmers like you that may not have had their firm goggles on for the last little while, it's a great time to pick them up and like try these out and see how effective that real-time feedback can be in improving your swimming. And then just kind of like broad statement is we are always working on improving our ways to use the goggles to help swimmers improve, and we're going to keep on doing that as we go through. And I'm pretty excited about what's to come in the next couple of months. And for those who are using the goggles, we got lots coming out for you.
Awesome. You know, that's actually one of the things I'll end with. You know, since I started with the goggles, I don't even, I think it might have been 2019. Is that about when they
That's
started?
when we released our first
And I
version.
got them really early.
Mhm.
And the software updates, right? Like it's every time a new software update would come out, I mean, it gets pushed to the goggles and you get new features. And that was exciting and is exciting. You all aren't just like, here's your product and that's the end of it. It's continuing to evolve. So awesome. Hey, well, Brian, thank you so much for the time today. We do appreciate you coming on, and you know, we'll maybe get you on again in the future when we get some new updates and things that are you know, our listeners would like to listen to. So thank you very much.
For sure. I'd love to come back. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, have a good rest of your day. Good Wednesday.